I could please ask everyone to take their seats. We'll get going in just a minute. Good evening and welcome to Aurora Town Council Chambers. It is 7 o'clock, Tuesday, June the 13th. Council, may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as has been amended? We'll require 2/3. Mover and a seconder, please. Councilors Kim and Peary requiring 2/3, and we'll be doing hand votes tonight. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. May I have a motion, or pardon me, declarations of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof, please? Seeing none, but we have no presentations. We do have one delegation. Before I go to delegation, I'm just going to ask the clerk to make a quick comment, and then we'll ask Ms. Luloff to come up.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Just for the benefit of council, the residents, and those watching, council will not be using the electronic voting system until we can, staff can figure out a better solution for councillors voting and make the process more timely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We have one delegate this evening, and that is Ms. Laura Luloff and Richard Douse, members of the Trails and Active Transportation Committee. Please come up. You have 5 minutes, and there is a chime that goes off when there is 1 minute left. So if you could please introduce yourself.
Thank you. I am Laura Luloff.
Richard Doust.
And we are members of the Trails and Active Transportation Committee. We'd like to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of council this evening. On Saturday, June 24th at 10 o'clock, the inaugural Bike Aurora will launch. This event is a celebration of Aurora's trails, cycling, and bringing more awareness to the trail system of this amazing town. Bike Aurora is also timed to join other municipalities participating in the province's Bike Month, which will run through until the end of June. So what's happening that morning? We're inviting cyclists of all ages and experience to come out, ride the scenic trails of Aurora together, and meet at the end of their rides in the parking lot of the Senior Center, where they'll we'll basically have a comprehensive hub of activity. Participants will be able to have their bikes checked by bike experts through bike shops that we've organized to participate as well. Activate Aurora will be there, and participants can take part in the Activate Aurora Challenge, try out the latest in e-bikes, helmets, and equipment, and enjoy some giveaways from our sponsors. There'll also be a barbecue available for a nominal fee through the Optimist Club. So this initiative follows many months of planning and development by the members of the Trails and Active Transportation Committee, which includes myself and Richard, as we mentioned, as well as Nancy Webb, Allison Collins-Marakis, and Bill Fraser.
We'd like to thank Councillor Humphreys and Marakis for their full support and leadership. We gratefully acknowledge all of Council's encouragement and the work of many staff. In particular, we've benefited greatly from the able assistance of Shelley Ware and Stephanie Mackenzie-Smith and the communications team. Kudos to Ron Weiss and his team from Activate Aurora, and for their guidance and participation. We also want to express sincere gratitude to the bike companies involved. That is Evolution, Spoke-O-Motion, Trek, and to the Optimist Club for the barbecue, as Laura said. Bike Aurora is a testament to the fact that trails and active transportation are a natural fit for Aurorans. Looking ahead, we believe that active transportation on our trails can play a large role in meeting Aurora's goal to be the fittest Canadian community by 2020. In conclusion, I'd like to invite members of council to join us on our rides. We would be happy to have some celebrity riders. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I first have a motion to receive? Councillor Tom, Councillor Gartner. Comments or questions for the delegates? Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Laura, Richard, thank you for coming. Just wanted to thank the committee, all of you, for all the hard work you guys have done. You guys have done exceptional work in putting this bike event together, and I'm looking forward to it. I'll try to make it out. I can't guarantee it because I don't really ride a bike very well, so but I will try to be out there and support everyone that does, and I'm looking forward to it. I know that this will be the first of what I expect to be an annual event, and I only believe that it will get better with the strength behind the committee itself. So thank you very much for all the hard work that you guys have done.
Councillor Gartner.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for your work as well. I saw you a couple weeks ago working diligently at the leisure complex. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. No other comments? All in favor of receipt, please. Opposed? That is carried. Thank you very much for coming out. We do appreciate it. And our second delegate, Kim Beckman and Cheryl Schindrick, with respect to a motion that is on our agenda tonight and probably correspondence that we've received and listed as item R2. Ms. Schindrick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Mayor Daw and members of Council. My name is Cheryl Schindrick, and I'm the Executive Vice President of Geranium and a Managing Member of the Highland Gate Development Team. I'm here this evening regarding item 8B on your agenda, the proposed motion regarding Highland Gate development. I am joined this evening by Mr. Robert Vicentine of Club Link, our joint venture partner, as well as Kim Beckman, a member of our legal team from Davies Howe Partners. And I am further joined by members of our Highland Gate project team, Farah Ward, with our company, who is a project manager on this project, Mr. Paul Sarda of SCS Consulting, one of the project engineers, who, with Farah Ward and our landscape architect, Mark Sholin, has been part of the team meeting with the residents in the community one-on-one over the past several months. Mr. Blair Seeley, who is a principal with SCS Consulting Engineers, is also here this evening, and he is responsible for the company's managing the construction sites, which the company works on everywhere, including the Highland Gate site. And so they're all here this evening in case there are questions that I may need to call upon them to answer. Firstly, I would like to thank Council for its support of the minutes of settlement reached last fall, and with the town and the Ratepayers Association, of course, and others. And I also want to acknowledge and thank the representatives of the Highland Gate Ratepayers Association for their support. Since executing those minutes of settlement last November and the board's subsequent approval of them in December, we have been working with your team and the Ratepayers Association to put in place a suite of measures to guide the development process and mitigate impacts on our neighbors, the residents of the Highland Gate neighborhood. We all entered the minutes of settlement in good faith, and I am pleased to say that we have been all working cooperatively and collaboratively in good faith to implement them. While our legal beagles and your legal beagles are dealing with the legal details of the minutes, we have been meeting regularly with your planning, engineering, and park staff to put in place the processes, controls, and mitigation measures to ensure that we follow the town's existing protocols and policies and implement the measures set out in the minutes of settlement. You have before you our correspondence dated June the 12th, setting out the various measures that are guiding our activities. Some of these are part of your normal requirements. Some of these are above and beyond your normal requirements. But all of these, we agree, are appropriate for an infill development site of this nature. Council, you and your staff are to be commended for the work that you have done to ensure these measures are put in place, whether through the contents of the minutes of settlement or through your existing approved protocols and processes. Our collective goal is to ensure that any impacts from construction activities are minimized and mitigated, and any issues are addressed in a timely manner. I think our correspondence speaks for itself, and provides a very good overview of these measures. I would, however, like to highlight the following points. The minutes of settlement require that a construction management plan be prepared for each phase and stage of development, and that these construction management plans form a schedule to the pre-servicing and subdivision agreements upon execution. Financial securities are provided to the town for all works carried out on site. To date, about $1 million have been posted, and there will be several more $1 million posted. We are meeting regularly with your staff on project implementation matters, and will continue to do so throughout the process. We've been meeting with residents in the community in accordance with the minutes of settlement, and prior to each phase of construction, we are notifying the residents again in accordance with the minutes of settlement. Since May the 3rd, we've hosted a call line dedicated to the Highland Gate site. It's operational 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and its number is 905-477-GATE, or 4283. We've provided extra dust control measures, and we've also given all the residents an opportunity to have prepared a pre-construction survey and a post-construction survey at no cost.
If you could please wrap up.
So, no, I don't. I'm wrapping up. We are consulting on an ongoing basis with the Ratepayers Association, and we thank them who have set up a regular meeting schedule with our team as a further means for obtaining input from the community. So to conclude, we have been guided to date by the commitments made by the parties to the minutes of settlement, the town's existing protocols, and the input of town staff, and we are confident that the matters outlined in the motion before you this evening are captured by those provisions. I want to assure Council that our company and our team is committed to working closely and collaborating with your staff, with the community representatives, to ensure that the construction process is carefully managed and that all issues are addressed quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. May I first have a motion to receive, motion to receive and refer to the motion. Thank you, Councilor Abel. Councilor Thompson. It's a little redundant, wasn't it? Any comments or questions, Councilor Rackus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, thank you, Cheryl, for coming tonight, and thank you for your delegation. Just to start off, I'm sure we can all agree that the concerns, that it's Council's obligation to ensure that these concerns are addressed. You've spoken to a number of measures that the developer will take in regards to a construction mitigation plan. But given that this is a first development of this magnitude in the town of Aurora in a stable neighborhood, are your assurances based on past experiences in the redevelopment of a golf course in a stable neighborhood? So before you answer, simply put, has this developer ever redeveloped a golf course in a stable neighborhood in another municipality?
Ms. Schindrick?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Maracas. Each development site brings its own set of challenges and opportunities, and so we approach each site with taking into consideration the challenges that are there and working with the municipality to ensure the appropriate measures and protocols are put in place to deal with those issues as they arise. And I'm confident, based on our team and our team's experience, that the way we've approached this development site is appropriate, and we have the means by which to modify our processes going forward if necessary. I think your staff have done a great job putting us to the test to ensure that we are conducting ourselves appropriately. And if necessary, we will work with them to make whatever modifications are necessary. But I'm confident that our team has put forward an excellent suite of measures.
Councilor?
Thank you, and through you. So, and that's great that all these measures have been put in place, but simply my question is just, has the developer ever redeveloped a golf course in a stable neighborhood in any other municipality?
Ms. Schindrick?
Well, the answer to that is no, sir, because we have not developed any other golf courses.
Councilor?
Thank you. So now I guess it's fair to say then, and I guess I'll just finish that, it's the first of a kind for development for this developer and for this municipality. So, but I thank you for your delegation tonight.
Councilor Abel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for coming to delegate. I appreciate the memorandum pointing out on each part of the notice of motion how you have addressed that concern with staff. And had anyone called, I guess no one had called you about this before, but you received the notice, and that's when you provided us that email for staff and for us to review. And we have that in receipt. I think it's only fair to ask, have you done developments in stable neighborhoods before?
Ms. Shindrick?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you, Councillor Abel, for that question. We have developed in other areas where we are in an infill, stable neighborhood situation. Our project, one example that you could, I could refer to is our site in downtown Stouffville, which is in a stable neighborhood. And it's proceeding according to all the processes that have been put in place without any incident. But it does require closer collaboration, more communication, and that's exactly what we've done here.
Councillor.
Thank you very much. And I wasn't aware of the detail and the one-on-ones that you had done. But I have talked to some residents, and you have been working with the Ratepayers Association closely on all these steps. Is that a fair comment?
Ms. Shindrick?
Yes, that's a very fair comment.
Councillor? Councillor Gardner?
Thank you for coming. And as you can appreciate, we're glad to hear from you from the developer's point of view. This motion is from the council point of view. And just a couple of things. The dust fence, it's different, slightly different height than in the construction mitigation plan. So that's something that I appreciate if staff look at. And I guess that's all for now. Thank you.
Councillor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Cheryl. Cheryl, is there anything in this motion that you weren't already considering to undertake? Or is there anything in this motion that you are unwilling to undertake?
That we are unwilling to take. As I hope my correspondence and presentation explains, I think we're doing all of that and more.
Councillor?
Thank you. I appreciate having your perspective. So us moving this motion wouldn't in any way, offend isn't the right word, but that's the only one that's coming to mind. Your organization, because again, as you stated, these are already things that you're looking to undertake.
Ms. Shindrick?
I'm sorry.
We switched the microphone on.
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Peary. My only concern, if I have a concern, is that there appears to be an additional step being placed into the process that is not typical, not contemplated in the minutes of settlement, or nor contemplated necessarily in your existing policy approaches to implementation. So that would be my only concern.
Councillor Perry?
So the first response that you had given me is that there is nothing in this motion that you're unwilling to undertake. So from my perspective, it might be unorthodox, but it's not something you're unwilling to proceed with. Is that my understanding?
Ms. Shindrick?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the extent that the additional step affects timing, the timelines, it does present a concern.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you for coming this evening, Ms. Shindrick. I think we can all agree that the scale and magnitude of this project will be impactful to the residents in the area and can be disruptive. And so I'm sure you understand Council's perspective in that we want to make sure that everything is being done possibly to mitigate that kind of a disruption. And so there's naturally going to be concerns about the construction plan because it's going to take a fair bit of time. And so you've spoken about, you feel that you've taken appropriate steps to do that and mitigate those. And there's a suite of measures that you've put in place. But if through this discussion, some other reasonable requests are going to be made to add to those suite of measures, are you prepared to keep an open mind to them?
Ms. Shindrick?
Mayor, through you to Councillor Thompson. Yes, we are always open to keep an open mind, or open to keep an open mind, yes.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess this question is along the lines of what Councillor Piri already asked Mrs. Shindrook. But if I were to put it another way, I'm not sure, I'll probably get the same answer, but what risks do you see if this motion goes through? We all know that, we've heard that everything that that's been outlined in your letter response, it seems to clarify that you guys are already doing the things that this motion is requesting. But what are some of the downside risks, if any, do you foresee if we were to move forward with the motion?
Ms. Shindrook.
Mr. Mayor, through you to Councillor Kim. Again, so it's a timing concern. We don't really understand how this additional step would work. Commitments are being made to residents, to homeowners, to implement certain things, and so really it's the mystery surrounding the timing of this additional step and the nature of it and how it functions. And so in our humble opinion, the controls are all there to ensure that the residents of the community are protected through the measures, the securities that are posted, and so our concern really is that there is an additional step in the process.
Councillor.
And you know, from all the people I've heard from, you know, you guys have been, I'm sure, you know, none of the residents would have preferred a development in their back door, but you know, that's water under the bridge. And I think everything I've heard, Geranium has been very reasonable and accommodative. So thank you for all of that. Has Geranium ever been to the OMB in another project?
Ms. Shindrook.
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Kim, yes.
Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Once that appeal's been heard and the verdict was given, has any other municipality given such a request or a motion midstream after the minutes of settlement has been agreed upon?
Ms. Shindrook.
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Kim, I can't say that I can recall, Councillor.
Councillor.
Okay. If Mr. Muno were to be able to bring back a report to assuage the authors of the motions by, say, July or even the latest August, how would that impact the timelines for you?
Ms. Shindrook.
Mr. Mayor, through to Councillor Kim, I have no issue with the report coming. I think council should be updated and there should be reports provided to council in terms of how things are working. The step of there being this report, I don't know what happens to it when it comes to council and what that then means for the execution of any agreements that are underway and working their way through the process. So an update to council, by all means, I would hope that would happen.
Councillor Kim.
I agree that a regular report should come to council, given the gravity and given, you know, our responsibilities to the residents, and we are just as much concerned over their experiences throughout this process. And I'm sure there's always going to be hiccups in any size, whether it's within an infill or open field. There's always going to be any hiccups, whether it's small or medium-sized. Or Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question to HCDI's lawyer? She brought them to respond to any questions.
Could you ask your counsel to come down, please?
I Thank you for coming. I guess my one question is, given that we know the minutes of settlement, would this motion and this request be considered a breach of the agreement, of the settlement, in your opinion?
Ms. Beckman?
It's clear that the contents of this motion were not contemplated in the four corners of the minutes of the settlement. And as Ms. Shindrick has indicated, one of the concerns we have is how this type of a motion would be interpreted and implemented along the way, because it is also outside of the standing protocols that the municipality currently has in place for processing applications. So one of the things that does concern us is the possibility that the motion, when implemented, could be, in fact, proceeded with in a way that is inconsistent with the minutes of settlement. Clearly, it's not my role to give this council its legal advice. You have your own independent legal counsel, but that is at the crux of legally a concern we would have about how this motion would operate in the real world, while in no way undermining in any respect the clear commitment of this developer to do exactly what the town expects of it.
Councilor Kim?
Yes. So I guess my interpretation is that on the surface, the motion and the requests asked are not necessarily a breach, but the concern would be how it can be interpreted and how the journey may fare, and it may kind of weave and turn into something that could be potentially a breach. That's how I'm interpreting it. Is that right?
Ms. Beckman?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. In fact, that's correct, because it does add a layer of process that was not contemplated in the minutes of settlement. And as Ms. Shindrick has indicated, that it's both a process issue and concern. It also presents the possibility that decisions taken in the future will be inconsistent with the minutes, and that in fact opens up an area of communication that frankly we don't believe is necessary, and that has been said multiple times by Ms. Shindrick. This developer is more than happy to have a totally open book with this council, with staff, and to continue this conversation, because it will be an ongoing conversation as development proceeds.
Councilor Kim? Councilor Marcus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the delegate. I think it's great that that as the developer you've put forward all these measures, and and you're looking to alleviate any of the concerns, also to mitigate any of the disruptive factors that would happen during the construction. But do you not feel that it is this council's obligation to ensure that that staff bring back a report on how they are going to make sure that they're going to hold the developer accountable, to make sure that what you're saying is going to happen is actually going to happen?
Ms. Shindrick?
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Marcus, absolutely we agree that that's appropriate. And the problem becomes when does that happen, and the potential for it to never be done, never be accepted. That is the concern, that the report is not accepted, and then we don't know what happens after that. So you have our commitments to deal with matters as they come up, but I don't know what time frame I'm stepping into with this motion.
Councilor Marcus?
Okay, thank you. And I wasn't really going to ask another question, but it was brought up as far as a comparison with the development in downtown Stouffville. And just so I can wrap my head around this, are we comparing a 67-unit condo to a development which is on the main street, to a development that's within a residential neighborhood that has 159 units plus a condo? So I just don't see how you can compare those. I can't see that being apples to apples. I don't think that's a fair comparison.
Ms. Shindrick?
Worship, through to Councillor Marcus. It's not an apples to apples comparison, but the principles are the same. It's an existing established area. It's a very tight site. There are lots of interface issues and that are being managed, and so the scale may be different, but the principles are all the same, and they need to be managed in a very responsible way as well. And so, you know, we'll be moving through the site on a phase-by-phase basis. And so I see the similarities being quite the same, with a difference in scale.
Councillor?
Thank you for your explanation, but for me, the scale is what's, to me, is the big difference in the whole development. But once again, I thank you for your delegation, and I'll look forward to the discussion with my colleagues at the table. Thank you.
Councillor Abel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And so I think it's fair that I get clear exactly what the additional step is. And if you could just explain what the concern, spell it out, the additional step.
Worship, through to Councillor Abel, I'm not entirely sure what how the additional step will play itself out, but to me, I see that there is a report to come to council, which we fully agree. Council needs to know what is going on out in that site from your staff. The step where, prior to the execution of an agreement, this report must come, and I don't know what council is to do at that point. It looks to me like council needs to then say, okay, execute the agreement. Now, many of these measures are actually a schedule to those agreements. So, and the securities are posted as part of those agreements. So it's that step of, if we say no, the agreement shouldn't be executed, it has the potential to bring this, you know, to create a lot of problems for a lot of people. Not only us, but those that are relying on the works that we've committed to doing as part of those agreements.
Councillor?
So, Mr. Mayor, and I think I've captured it here, it's in the first, therefore, hereby resolved that staff provide a report to council, and this is what we're talking about, that step, before any agreements are signed. So that is of concern, because if that report takes 2 days, that's not an issue. But if it takes 3 months, that is, because the scope of this work in assembling, I can see assembling and scheduling heavy equipment and all those contracts are going to all be held at bay. And the concerns that are asked to be met are mitigating measures, which are already there. So I guess I can see your frustration. You've also put down securities. You've also done all these things. So the idea that nothing be signed until these are met is a misunderstanding, because they already are there. So the report should really just be, we should acknowledge that all those things are being done, and maybe we can just, well, we'll have that, but if we were to remove that one part until the agreements are signed, then we'd just be fine going along. And you have no problem with the report coming back, as you've said, and the concern you've identified is just to halt everything. When you've got all this emotion in the minutes, perhaps the gravity and the understanding of what that may entail is not completely understood at this council table, because of the huge, I mean, I can't imagine what you have to schedule. I'm just trying to schedule my life, and I can't imagine what that's like. So what you're doing with hundreds of thousands of people, dollars and stuff, and millions, I guess we're talking about, and working with all our people. So to put a freeze and tell everyone we got to wait for the summer until this is, and until we have any idea. So I understand completely now what that problem is. It's just that one little part. And the reason it's put in there is because we have to understand that these measures are put in place, but they already are in place. Thank you very much.
Councillor Gartner?
No, why don't you answer? Oh. Well, it does say in here that
We're not talking about the motion, we're just to the delegates' presentation.
no, I'm going to leave it for now, Councillor Marcus. If you want to.
Thank you.
He's talked twice? So I'm just trying to clarify what Councillor Abel said. The subdivision agreements haven't been signed yet. That would have to be a question to Mr. Muno.
Mr. Romero? Well, Ms. Schendrick? This is better discussed. You have a subdivision agreement. Councillor Gartner's question was whether or not the subdivision agreement had been signed.
To Councillor Gardner, no, it has not been signed. Permits have been issued. Securities have been posted in conjunction with those permits. The next step would be the pre-servicing agreement, where there will be further securities posted, and many of these measures are attached as a schedule to that agreement.
Councillor? Councillor? Good? All right, thank you. Ms. Schendrick, there seems to be some concern about the size of projects that Geranium has been involved in. Perhaps you could give a quick update on what Friday Harbor, how big it is and how well it went.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that question. Friday Harbor is a 600-acre site in the town of Innisfil, consisting of 2,000 resort units, 1,000 slip marina, an 18-hole golf course. We do build them as well. It's been under the purview of, I think, every agency, government agency in the province, including some federal agencies, Departments of Fisheries and Oceans and Transport Canada. And we've been very successful in meeting all of the environmental targets and requirements, and we've been applauded for our work in the redevelopment of an old marina. It was an old marina that we have restored and rehabilitated and really brought into environmental excellence. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Council, that's, I see no more questions. All in favor of receipt, please. Receipt and refer. Contrary? That's carried. Thank you very much. Councillor Perry?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Ideally, we've got people in the audience waiting for it. I would move that forward just to deal with it now, because that seems to me to be the only substantial item on the agenda.
Is there a second, please? Move it forward. Councillor Kim, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. So that is Councillor Gartner. We'll go to you. It's your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To me, it's very simple.
Whoa, just, you want to speak? Do you want to move it? Are you just moving it at this point? Please?
Yes,
Thank
I'm
you.
certainly moving it.
Sometimes you like to read it out.
True.
Second, Councillor Marcus, obviously. Back to you, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to me, it's very simple. As members of council, we have a duty to protect the best interests of our residents, and council and staff have a responsibility to ensure that the process goes smoothly with the minimum amount of inconvenience and frustration and intrusion into the lives of the residents. Councillor Maracas and I discussed this, and especially what could be done proactively. Once the agreement is signed, it's too late. There's been a lot of discussion by the developer. The word conversation has been used a lot. I'm not looking for conversation. I'm looking for, from staff, a report, what we can do in writing. It's very different and it's very important. And that's all that I'm going to say now. I'm going to listen to council.
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. Other speakers, please. Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I do want to thank Councillor Maracas and Councillor Gartner for bringing this motion forward. Certainly, anything that helps residents, anything that protects their interests, anything that helps guide the process through as smoothly as possible so that their lives are not encumbered. Anytime there's a large-scale development, there's always going to be some discomfort. You can't remove that, but you certainly, as a town, want to do the most that we can to ensure that everything goes as smoothly as possible. So I thank the councillors for bringing it forward. I think also a comment that, make no mistake, we're all in agreement that we want the residents within the Highland Gate community to have a smooth transition throughout this build. I think there's just a misinterpretation of maybe it's a legal interpretation. So I just want to clarify that, and in terms of also what the partnership with working with Highland Gate Development Inc. Has been. So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno, how have your dealings been with HCDI since the finalization of the minutes of settlement?
Mr. Ramuno, please.
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Mayor, we've had a very good working relationship with the Highland Gate Development folks. Ever since the board decision, we have been meeting since the early January on a regular basis, at least once a month to deal with the future development approvals, implementations, working towards putting together agreements, preparing the various permit applications, and actually working out a protocol and management plan for the future construction activities. And they have taken their own initiative in going above and beyond our normal process. And Ms. Shindrick did mention a few things that they have done with respect to, of course, with the amount of meetings they're having with the ratepayers associations, with the residents that back onto the course, pre-construction surveys, a number of other things as well, in particular setting up their hotline to deal with any issues that may arise during the construction activity of the first phase.
Councillor Kim.
Has any of your staff had any complaints in their dealings with Highland Gate Development?
Mr. Ramuno.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, we haven't had any complaints. And I as well as Mr. Downey and our respective staff, have attended most of those meetings with the group.
Councillor Kim.
And how would you compare, we've gone through a lot of developments from small infills to large, like the 2B, 2C lands. How would you compare your working relationship with HCDI compared to other builders?
Mr. Ramuno.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's been a very positive working relationship. Again, they've been very accommodating. Again, we've been meeting on a regular basis, and they've been willing to, again, go above and beyond our standard processes and protocols that we have in place.
Councillor Kim.
Yes, and we've all read, we were forwarded from the clerk the response to the motion in writing from our clerk yesterday, and we all had time to read it, and it seems like all the concerns that are in the motion, they've readily responded to. Do you feel that this extra layer is necessary?
Mr. Ramuno.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, again, I don't have an issue, and as we heard, considering the scale of the development, I don't have a problem if council directs me to provide a report, and I can have something for even the June council cycle, just outlining the current processes that we have in place and how we're going to manage the construction activity, and in particular, how we're going to be able to enforce all our requirements through the various pre-servicing and subdivision agreements.
June or July cycle?
July. Did I say June? Yeah. July.
Councillor Kim.
Mr. Ramuno, we just approved 4 applications in the last council. And we gave authorizations to the clerk and mayor to strike various agreements similar to this, all on different scales. And so my question is, why do we have to treat this different? I'm fine with, if we're going to have a different process for different builders or different sites, then, you know, I think we should investigate that from a total policy perspective at the town level. So I'm happy to entertain that. I just like consistency and follow our existing protocol, and I'm just kind of wary of singling this project out when there's been no indications that we need to highlight this project in particular, given that Highland Gate Development Inc. has been very cooperative. They've demonstrated over the last few months that they're willing to go above and beyond what is necessary. And so I just want some consistency and not just highlight this one development. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to our solicitor, this motion, I mean, wording is everything, and the motion states that in the first clause, if I can bring that out, that before any agreements are signed, that outlines all measures. So it seems like there's conditions. If we refuse to, if we have any issues with some of the process at this point, what would it mean to us if we decided to decide that there's an issue?
Mr. Serio?
Through you, Mayor Dodd, to Councillor Kim, it would prevent staff from bringing the agreements to the mayor and clerk for signature. The agreements will still be finalized or finished from staff, but when we bring it to the mayor, we wouldn't be able to bring it to the mayor and clerk.
Councillor Kim, you've got about 30 seconds left.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So even if we can't bring it to the mayor and the clerk, will the project still continue?
Mr. Serio?
Through you, Mayor Dodd, no, because we need a valid agreement, fully enforceable, executed agreement in order to go ahead with the project.
Councillor Kim?
The settlement of the minutes of the settlement, right?
Mr. Serio?
Through you, Mayor Dodd, if council and staff and everyone can't come to a conclusion, then yes, it would be a breach because then the agreements will not be signed.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. That raises a great point, because I did not think that, I thought this motion would be more of a guideline. It's kind of a neutral thing, but there could be very well legal implications down the road. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Councillor Peary, Abel Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, just to start, I will state that I respectfully disagree with Mr. Serio's last statements. So ultimately, what we're going to be doing right now for the next half hour, 45 minutes, is discussing the words before any agreements are signed. I think everybody around this council table agrees that getting staff to come to us, write a report, giving us. We've received the developers' position on what they're doing. I would want something that our staff is doing to come back to us to provide that out and see if there's anything else that the developers missed. I think everybody around the table would agree to that. So really what we're going to be doing for the next half hour, 45 minutes, I'm giving the people watching at home, the knowledge that they can go for a bathroom break if they so wish. We're going to be talking about any agreements before any agreements are signed. So the reason I disagreed with our solicitor, I see these 5 words as a timing issue. So through you to the clerk, we did make a motion to have our staff sign the minutes of settlement, correct?
Mr. Clerk?
Through you, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, that was before my time and have to look it up, but that seems like a very, yes, I'm sure we did.
Last fall.
So if a motion is coming forward here today that would impede us moving forward with the execution of those minutes of settlement, would they not be contradictory to the motion to sign the minutes of settlement, which means that we understand them and we're moving forward on them?
Mr. Clerk? Or Mr. Serio? I'm not sure which.
So because we've sent staff away to sign and agree to the minutes of settlement, if we're now going to be presenting a motion that would impede the execution of that agreement, would it not be a contradictory motion?
Mr. Serio?
I have to think about this. I wouldn't necessarily say it's contradictory. Like, it could be contradictory, but it's all in terms of, even as town staff, the practice of bringing the agreements to the mayor and clerk for signature. So yes, they do have authority to sign the agreements. I don't know. But I'm back to your initial response, your initial comment. Before any agreements are signed, you're right, could be seen as more of a timing issue. So it's not. Okay.
Sorry, just I don't want to let somebody else get to the punchline. So my view is, if we're taking the belief that the words "before any agreements are signed" to mean that we're going to be impeding the minutes of settlement, then I think that this motion is contradictory and we shouldn't be looking at it. If, however, what we're doing is asking to come back on a timing issue, and we'd like to see this report before any of our staff members go and present a report to the mayor to sign, whether or not we agree or disagree with that report at that time, I think is irrelevant, because staff have a direction to execute the minutes of settlement, so they're going to be moving forward along those lines. For me, what I understand and what I see before me is that we would like a report back to us quickly. That's my interpretation, because anything else in my view, I mean, if I've stumped a lawyer, you know, there could be an argument made, but anything else in my opinion could be contradictory. So I think if we're moving forward, it would be my understanding that this is an information report coming back to us, and strictly an information report coming back to us. And if we're moving forward with the belief that it's a report for a motion which could impede something we've already agreed to, I don't think it's in order. So maybe we can get some clarity, but it's my understanding that this is just going to, it would be my expectation that this is just a report for information. And I'm okay with that. And if that's not the case, then I think we should take that clause out, because it makes it contradictory.
Excuse me, thank you, Councillor Perry. Councillor Abel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could just ask the two councillors on their notice of motion, through you, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, did you contact staff on the provisions that Geranium had put forward?
Councillor Gardner.
Correct. This motion came out of the mitigation, the construction and communications mitigation plan that I saw and we shared from the developer. And it is a timing issue. The intent of this motion is not to stop the development. We can't do that. The intent of the motion is to have as much in writing, to make sure that staff has as much in writing as possible, and that council knows what's in writing, so that we can just protect our residents and have a smooth construction process. So, yeah, it's a timing issue.
Okay, Councillor Abel, did I answer your question?
No, Mr. Mayor. I asked if they had contacted staff, so I'm going to assume no, but Councillor Marakis may be able to add.
Councillor Marakis?
Councillor Marakis, did you contact staff about what mitigations were put in place?
I've spoken to staff many times about this. It's not the matter of what, once again, as Councillor Gardner has mentioned, it's not what the developer is doing to put in place. This motion is about what is staff going to do to ensure that those, the mitigation plan and any procedures that are going to be followed. What is staff going to do to ensure to our residents and to this council that those procedures are going to be followed? That's what this motion is about. Quite honestly, it's not up to me to look at what the developers, call them up and find out what they're doing. My job is to go through
Okay.
staff, and that's
Thank
what
you,
I did.
Councilor Marcus. Councilor Abel.
I'm going to assume that you have talked to staff, but you didn't ask them what mitigations have been put in place. And I'm just going to ask that, I didn't know the detail, but, and I thank the questions being asked, because the responses convince me that we are proceeding to safeguard, and actually Geranium Homes and staff are going that extra mile, if you prefer, to make sure that there are mitigations in place. Knowing what I know now, I'm quite comfortable taking out before any agreements are signed, because all the mitigation concerns have been met and have been discussed with staff, and I would only ask that that part be removed, and I think you would have unanimous vote saying yes, bring a report on. Mr. Mayor, through you, I believe Mr. Ramuno said that he could have that report for us by next Tuesday.
No, July. July.
Well, I mean, I still would like to, I think in the spirit of working together with our development, that all our developers that are here, and we have a great reputation. I've had a few of them say how different the municipality of Aurora is to work with, and how the staff are. And we have often had complaints about dust or litter, and we have very quickly had staff move in to correct those situations in other developments. And I'm, with a hotline and teams going around to individual residents in phases, I am quite comfortable eliminating that. And the Geranium Homes has brought their team out to say they have no problem if they could just remove that one little part. Our solicitor said the same. So I would like to amend it by just removing before any agreements are signed, and move forward with that. And
Is that an amendment?
yes, I would like to make that amendment.
Is there a second for Councilor Abel's amendment? Councilor Kemp? So the amendment is to remove the wording before any agreements are signed. Is that correct, sir? So, Councilor Abel, if you wish to speak to that.
Yeah, I'll speak to the amendment, and I think in the spirit of working with our developer here, we should be welcome development into our community, and our ratepayers have not expressed any concern. In fact, the concerns have been brought forward by Councillors Maracus and Gardner, that they have concerns, that they want to make sure that these mitigation factors are put in place for our residents, and I'm convinced that they are in place. I thank them for bringing that to my attention, because I wasn't aware of it. I thank Geranium Homes, Ms. Shendrick, for bringing all that detail forward, and your team. And I think it's unnecessary to put that there. The way it reads to me is that none of these things have been in place, and it's just a matter of interpretation, as their solicitor had said. And I think in fairness, having the response that we've heard, that it would be incumbent upon us to extend the same spirit of cooperation and willingness to work, and remove that one little part and get that report back to us in as quick a fashion as possible. To leave it in is, I just think is unnecessary, based on everything that I've heard. So I think moving forward, we should show that council that's how we, that's what we're made about, and our residents should be assured that all the mitigations are in place and known and public right at this point. And our staff will bring a report probably reflecting a very similar sentiment as Mr. Ramuno has already said. So,
Councilor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm going to give some examples of why I think we need to have these things before us, before any agreements are signed. If you look at item number 2, page 2 of the letter, section 1.2, Should an issue not be rectified by HGDI after receiving notice by the town is able to draw on the financial securities to rectify the matter. So, what I would like to have in writing is, what are the parameters around using these securities? We need to know when they're going to come into play, how much we can use, how long we give the developer to rectify this. Second thing, it's 1.3. HGDI is working constructively with town staff to address concerns as they arise in a timely manner. We've gotten into trouble before. We need to know who on our town staff is the responsible person. Where does the buck stop? And it may be more than one person. It may be one person for the servicing agreements. It may be one person for the construction. We need to know that. That information has to come back to us. With respect to 1.6, the enforcement of the agreement in regard to the developer's letter of credit, same comment. It says the ability to draw upon a posted security to rectify the matter. I want to know the parameters around that. As I said, the height of the dust fence is different than in the mitigation plan that was given to the residents. So I want to know, it's mentioned it can be between 1 and 1.5 meters. We were told 6 feet. That 6 feet is 1.83 meters. I want to know what it is, because we saw from the experience in the east part of Aurora with State Farm what happened when there was a lot of dust flying around, and the problems it caused for that business. In this case, we have residents. The thing about the community call line, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, well, that's going to be an answering service. So what are the timelines? How quickly does the developer staff have to get back to the residents? What happens if the issues can't be resolved between the developer and the residents? Then what happens with town staff? Are we as a council going to be getting calls to try and rectify something that we really can't? Nothing has been mentioned about the roads. There's going to be a lot of heavy trucks on our roads. There's going to be a lot of wear and tear. There may be damage. So who's going to be responsible for that? These are things that we need to know as a council. We need to be able to have them in writing, and there'll be no misunderstanding with the developer. It really is to everybody's benefit. And I'm very opposed to taking out the clause that Councillor Abel said, because as I said, once agreements are signed, we have no power. This is when we have the power to make things the way we want them to be for the residents.
Councillor Gartner, Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on that last comment from Councillor Gardner, when you speak about power, I mean, this development decision has already come and gone. Development's going to happen. So, really all this is about is mitigation procedures. And so through that, and certainly we want all the mitigation processes in place because we want what's best for our residents. There's no doubt of that. And I think it's, frankly, I'm really disappointed that we're having this discussion because we all want the same thing. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Ramuno, do we have existing construction agreements and mitigation plans in place? I'm sure that's a standard procedure just because every municipality has developments. And with development, there's dust concerns, there's grading concerns, water. So can you confirm that, please?
Mr. Ramuno.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Kim, yes, we do standard protocol for most municipalities. It's typically handled through the subdivision agreement also the pre-servicing agreement. We've already issued a topsoil removal permit, and so we've secured a letter credit for that work. So yeah, the provisions of the conditions of approval through the minutes of settlement are enforced through the subdivision agreements. And construction management plans or conditions that you'll find in most conditions of approval related to subdivision developments. And we have bylaws, our noise bylaw as well, that deals with construction activity or prohibition between 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. the next day. And we've got dust control measures as conditions within the agreements.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Muno. And I guess that's my point, in that all these mitigation procedures are already in place. And if this is a special development that requires other mitigation procedures, and we want to ensure that those are in place, I'm all for Councillor Gardner's and Marakis' motion to have those mitigations in place and put it in writing for informational only. I think HCDI has already demonstrated that they're willing to go above and beyond. Staff has already confirmed that they've been willing and able partners. And so, and given that they've already have started working on the land, they've started grading, the topsoil is half removed, the trees are removed. It seems like us as a partner, we're kind of putting new rules to the game when all the other stakeholders are willing to work as willing partners. In terms of hiccups, in terms of dust, whether they put they agreed to 6-foot fencing, which I understand is higher than the standard. Whether they put 6 feet or even 20 feet, there's still going to be dust. Residents, this is going to be their first time through this. It's everyone's first time through this. When we get a sense of dust, we're going to say, oh, it's not working because there's dust, but there will always be dust. In my neighborhood, in the first 5 years of development, all the mitigation places were put in place in 2C, but I still got dust. That's, I expected it, and I don't think if there was a higher fencing or screen that anything's going to change. So there will be some discomfort. How could there not be in a development? And just to respond to Councilor Marakis' point, in that he reiterated that this motion is really for staff, to ensure that staff is doing its job. This is a just internal policies, procedures, protocol issue. This is like an efficiency matter. This can be handled internally. I'm not sure that it's requiring of a motion so that our staff works efficiently and does its job. Why do we have to bring Highland or Geranium into this if it's an internal operational issue? Because I know that some of us are disappointed in the way that other developments have worked out. I know Tyler has been pointed out 1 or 2 times, and certainly that was, staff could have done potentially a better job there. But if it's an internal issue, then it doesn't have to bring our other partners into this or stakeholders, because it's strictly internal. I think earlier Councillor Gardner agreed that this was informational only, and so if it stays that way, I'm perfectly fine with it, and I'm perfectly fine with the the spirit and the principle of the motion, because again, we all agree that we want mitigation procedures in place, and we'll certainly, I'm sure all of us will call Marco on his cell phone every 2 hours to make sure that everything's okay with the residents, because we want the residents to be in a good place. Thank you.
Councillor Kim. Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a timing. All it is a timing situation. The agreement has not been signed. It needs to be signed. And so let's make sure what are those procedures that staff are going to enforce and how they're going to enforce them before we sign the agreement. Let's have that knowledge. Let's get this around the table. Let's get that communicated to our residents. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ramuno. Mr. Ramuno, who does the enforcement? Would that be the developer or the town?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's town staff.
Councillor?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Ramuno as well. And who does the monitoring? Would that be the staff as well, the town staff?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, combination, obviously, the developer's consulting engineer will be on site. They need to provide reports and certification for the servicing work, but our town inspectors will also be out monitoring and inspecting during the construction period.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno. So, for me, that's part of the whole thing with this motion is to look at, how staff can enforce it. How many times are they going to go out and monitor it? These are some of the things that I'd like to know, and those are the details. And as they say, the devil's in the details. We need to know those details. Our residents need to know those details. If we're just going to leave it and just decide, hey, you know what, let's just leave it. Let's trust that the mitigation plan is going to be in effect and it's going to happen and it's going to be according to the way that everyone says that it's going to be. We've seen that play out before as well. We've had a task force developed for the JOC, and we decided not to go into the details, and look what happened with that one. So I say it's important that we get those details from our staff on how this is going to be enforced, how it's going to be monitored for our residents within a stable neighborhood. This is a unique development. It's first of its kind. To say that it's similar to any other development, to say that it's the same as something that was developed in the 2C area or in the 2B area, that's not correct. We're within people that are currently living there, and this is going to be right in their backyard. So we need to ensure that it's going to be the least amount of disruption to our community as a whole. And so I think it's important that we get a report stating on how our staff is going to go about to make sure that what the developer is telling us that they are going to do is going to happen. And so that's all this motion is asking for. And it's saying that before we sign that agreement, we know we have to sign it, but before we sign it, let's have staff bring us that report and tell us how they're going to make sure that all of this is going to happen. And so I think it's quite clear, and I think it's a pretty standard motion. I don't see the difficulty in moving forward with this. We're not impeding, we're not stopping any development. So I'm against the amendment.
Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Dodd. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about this. Just so I'm clear, it appears the motion as written, the two members who have written the motion have indicated that it's a timing issue as opposed to anything else. But I'm questioning how staff would interpret this clause. So, clearly we have on the agenda from GC, we have a number of site plan approvals and various planning matters that are coming before council for approval, and that also require that the mayor and town clerk be authorized to execute agreements. So I guess I'd like to know if it's just timing and we're going to get a report back before any of those agreements would come to council for approval, that's something feasible by staff? I mean, when were they planning on bringing the next agreement with respect to this motion? I mean, obviously there's a number of agreements still to come, so when was that planned to be presented to council? I mean, is it September, or is it October, or is it June? I mean, what?
Mr. Ramuno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Council Tom, if your question is when the subdivision agreement or pre-servicing agreement will be ready, I mean, it wouldn't be brought forward to council because, again, that's an administrative matter. We're probably a month or two away from finalizing the pre-servicing agreement and presenting that to the mayor and clerk for execution.
Councillor?
So there's a number of agreements that this line encompasses. It's not just the site plan approval, or it's not just the various planning matters that come before council and general committee to be approved by council. There's many agreements that staff have to undertake with the developer that wouldn't necessarily come to our desk, that would also be halted by this. And so that obviously puts a bit of a halt on the process. If I'm correct, just let me know.
Mr. Muno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there will be, in this instance, there'll be two agreements, pre-servicing agreement and then the final full subdivision agreement. And again, at this point, I think we're probably 6 weeks or 6 weeks away from having a pre-servicing agreement ready for execution. Then there'll be a subdivision agreement a few months after that.
Councilor?
What I'm hearing is that if you can bring this back in July, we're not putting a halt onto planning staff's original intent in terms of the timelines. Is that correct?
Mr. Muno?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. I can have a report if council wishes for July 4th.
Councilor?
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I mean, as long as this wording doesn't impede staff in any way to go about their usual business up until we get the report, it's fine. My only issue is that the way the motion reads, and perhaps it wasn't the intent, but words matter, and sometimes when people read things differently when they read it for the first time. What happens if the report does not reflect the motion's various clauses in terms of mitigation factors? Let's say it either exceeds or doesn't exceed, then are we going to, at that time, I mean, it's irrelevant at this conversation, but the conversation will then be, well, I think this is why the developer is concerned, is that, how do we move forward with signing agreements if council's at loggerheads with the process? And so for me, that's the sticking point. Listen, I was not in favor of the minutes of settlement. I voted against them. I didn't think that the development, in my opinion, was the right way forward for our community, but council as a whole decided to sign the minutes of settlement, and so here we are. So, do I want to report back? Absolutely. I mean, I think we owe it to the residents to monitor the situation. It is an area of significance, but I'll remind council on the agenda tonight on Bayview and St. John's, we have a massive, massive commercial development with, I think, site plan approval for the northeast corridor of Bayview and St. John's. I mean, there's a ton of residential very close across both St. John's and Bayview, and new development going in even on the east side. And we're not putting any of these measures that are contemplated tonight in this motion with respect to that development. I mean, I'm sure the residents in that area of town would love to have some of the extra steps that we're taking with Highland Gate put in place for that area as well. So when Councillor Kim mentioned that, I'd rather take maybe a bird's eye view of this whole scenario, and maybe we can streamline this process a bit better. That's fine. I'd be in favor of that. So I guess my final comment is I've just got assurance from staff that this line doesn't in any way impede them from their current schedule, and the report will be brought back before any agreements were planned to be signed anyways. I'm happy to keep it in, but I just like my opinion to be known that, we had an opportunity to vote against this development, and that has come and gone. Again, my view didn't win out, but now that we have moved forward, I think that we should be fair in our application of our own policies, definitely hold the developer to account, but I don't think we should try to in any way use this as a backdoor way to hold up the development. So based on staff's and Marco's answers, I'm going to vote against this. I'm happy to have this report come back before any agreements are signed. However, in no way I'm looking to use that to hold up the development.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humphreys.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And many of my questions have been answered in terms of speaking to the amendment. For me, I understand the intent of this, and it's to make sure that when I read this and I thought about that we really don't want to be at arm's length of the development in terms of residents' issues, complaints, concerns throughout the process. And I do believe the developer did a great job in terms of what they're doing to mitigate the issues. There's a community hotline that's been up since May the 3rd. All types of measures to abide by our bylaws in terms of new development, but it is in a stable neighborhood. And I always thought, there's a way that we can partner closer so that we can be aware and step in step and hand with the developer as issues come about and can be resolved quickly and efficiently, so that that the issues get addressed, quickly for our residents' concerns. But in terms of putting this before any agreements are signed, I didn't realize or think that this would stop any of the development moving forward. I'm hearing it won't, but I need to get a clear answer from staff. I don't want to have, we've already voted on this development, it's moving forward, and we need to make sure it continues to do that way. Postpone the pain, I don't want to do that, and we got to get moving on this, but I just want to make sure that, that we do the right things by our residents, and that staff understand clearly what their obligations are if issues come about and how they learn of them. So I don't mind, I absolutely love, the report in terms of getting this information back to us to hear what our staff will be doing when these issues arise. And I think we asked that at a couple of meetings, I believe, Mr. Ramuno, what was our plan to address some of the concerns that will come, they will happen. So for me, it's more working closely with the developer who's taking full accountability of this development and issues that come about. I saw the signs up with the main numbers to call in if any residents have concerns, which I think is great. I believe they're taking accountability and they're going to be taking ownership of these problems. What happens as counselors is we will be getting the emails, as we already are, on things that they're not happy with, residents aren't happy with. So what are we going to do as counselors? Who do we bring that issue to? How does that work? Is staff going to know before we know that there's a problem, and how do they work, and who do they work with at the developer's end? I think at one point I thought about, why don't we put a committee together, staff, Highland Gate, Right Bear, and the developer together, so that they can monitor all the issues that come in and address them quickly. So for me, this is a mitigation plan. It's a strong plan to work together. I don't want to stop do not want to stop development moving forward. I don't think that line that says before any agreements are signed, it looks like we're 30 to 60 days away. If we get a report back before then, and then my one worry is if we get a report back and we don't like what we see, then what? Then what? That's what I'm really worried about. I'm worried about that one line in there before any agreements are signed. What are we going to do? So I worry about that. So through Mr. Mayor, can someone say, if we get the report back from staff and we don't like what we see, do we stop the development? I need to ask the question. Anybody?
Who would you like to direct that question to?
Mr. Ramuno, or I don't know.
Mr. Ramuno?
It's hard.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Humphreys, since the minutes of settlement were signed and the board decision was issued back in December, staff has been working with the property owner in proceeding to implement the approvals that were put in place. And that means, and I think I've informed council of this, the first step that they did, apart from all their consultation with the residents regarding their landscaping plans for the existing residents, we've been working with them on the first thing was the vegetation management plan. They cleared the trees, submitted a demolition permit. They've done that. The next big construction activity, and we're placing notices on our website, and the developer is advising the Ratepayers Association and the residents, is a topsoil removal permit. Earthworks was issued on just this past Monday. So I just want to be clear. So there are some critical timing issues in that once they start their earthworks, and that's probably a 2-month project, their next phase, and they're timing it this way, as most developers are, is to start their underground servicing work, and they then require that pre-servicing agreement to be executed in order to carry on with the construction activity. First is removing the topsoil, then executing the agreement to start the actual underground services and the road work.
Councillor Humphreys.
So basically, we need a report back before any of that happens. I guess I'm confused. I'll just listen. I'll listen. I'm confused. To me, it sounds before any agreements are signed. Well, we can't sign them until this report comes back. And then when it comes back, if we don't like it, can go back to staff again and negotiate further mitigation plans. Because it actually says in here, and I'm just going to state it, guys, because I just want to make sure, I support the entire idea. I just don't want to stop progress. I want to have this enforced and put in place, but without impeding progress. It says here, should any amendments to our bylaws be requested that will affect residents, an outline of the process, how these will be approved and communicated that affect our community. Are we anticipating bylaws to change? Anyways, talking out loud.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw, for the third time. Through you to Mr. Ramuno. So, Mr. Ramuno, you said that you can bring us a report forward on for our GC meeting on July 4th, which means roughly 2 weeks from now we'd get that report. To the best of your knowledge, do any agreements need to be signed in the next 2 weeks?
Mr. Ramuno?
Mr. Mayor, no. Not within 2 weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Ramuno. And listen, I agree with all the comments around the table. This is probably the most significant project the town will ever see. In terms of the size, the scope, the potential for disruption, and so a little additional oversight I think is good. You look at the issues we've dealt with over this term and last with regards to Canada Post and the JLC and the leisure complex, and if we learned anything, a little extra due diligence is a good thing. And so I think it is wise for us to get a report to completely understand, both from our perspective as well as for the residents, what's going to be done, how is it going to be managed, what's involved in the process. And it doesn't seem to be any impact to the developer. As Mr. Ramuno said, it's a 2-week turnaround for this report. And I, as Councillor Tom mentioned, words matter. The motion before us just says to provide a report. It doesn't say that we have to agree with the report. It doesn't say that, we have to approve the report to enable staff to go forward and sign any further agreements or anything. So, I'm comfortable with the way that stands. I think it's a wise move on our part to be completely clear of how we're going to manage this project in conjunction with the developers. This is a long process, and so I look forward to getting that report in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really hate when we start to spin our wheels around the table. So to clarify everything that's gone on around the table, Councillor Marakis and Councillor Gartner have indicated that this report they're seeking is just for information purposes, that there was a request, which again is a timing issue, where they would like the report back before any agreements are signed. That's the timeline for which they're expecting a report back. Mr. Ramuno has indicated that he's got a report ready to go for July the 4th, which again is going to be before any agreements are signed. And then from that point now we've got an amendment that we're going to remove the words before any agreements are signed when Mr. Ramuno's already committed to bringing us a report in 2 weeks. I was a little off on my timeline estimate. It was longer than a half an hour to 45 minutes. We're spinning our wheels. We're all talking about the same thing in different languages, it seems. I think there's been enough said around the table to indicate to the developers that any reports that come back are not going to be...
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Humphreys. Typically, complaints come in directly to town staff. And of course, if we do get calls that come into the planning department, we will deal with them and we'll work with the developers' staff to resolve those issues. And we will be reporting back to council on a regular basis. We've already, as part of our protocol, established a process where we're going to work with the applicant's hotline and monitor the amount of calls that they get, ensure that they are addressed in a timely fashion.
Great.
Councillor?
Good, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And this is why I think why we're feeling the way we are is normally we take all the calls, we take the responsibility, we take the complaints, dust, everything. And I feel that a developer has stepped up and taking on this role, which I believe will offload staff in many cases. I'm just saying, like, if they get a complaint and they address it, the resident won't call us. So I feel that staff will have less of a workload. If this works the way it's intended, it's a beautiful mitigation plan. What we're trying to do here with this motion is we need to step up our game too. As a counselor, I want to know what's happening out there, and I know that the developer is working very closely with staff, and they have all their meetings, and I'm confident that things will go well. But when they don't, I believe as councillors, we need to know. And that's why I like this motion, only not to interfere or to get in the middle, but to make sure that we are aligned with what's happening, we hear what's going on, we get that to us. And I love that Mr. Mamuna will be reporting to us on how things are going, issues that arise, how we've addressed them. And I believe that this is just going to clarify the questions we've been asking of staff since everything was signed. So for me, that's how I read this. I hope that the developer, Highland Gate residents, don't feel that, you know, we're trying to impede or stop anything at all. For me, it's working together and having staff be very, very aware of what's going on, that we understand what's happening. We have a pulse on what's going on. We are going to continue to get, I know we're getting emails. Who do I call? Do I call the 800 number? Do I call staff? So this is why I believe we need that interim measure. Because I don't want to be calling the 800 number because they're going to get sick and tired of hearing from me. But hopefully not. But I think that's really, for me, I support the motion because of this reason, that we need to be a part of this process. I feel that, again, I'm grateful to the developer to take a very strong role in making sure it goes well and that issues are addressed. But I do believe as staff and as councillors, Mayor, we need to know what's happening out there. And I think this will allow that to happen, and it'll be more official, and staff will know what they're doing. Just one last question. Will we be monitoring the site just like we would any other development for dust, road issues, debris, things of that nature? Or do we, will that come through a reactive perspective? I just want to know from my own perspective.
Mr. Muno?
Mr. Mayor, no, our engineers, inspectors will be on site on a regular basis monitoring the construction activities.
Thank you. Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. I said most of my what I wanted to say when speaking to the amendment. Staff and Mr. Ramuda made it clear that this is going to be coming back before there's going to be any undue impact with respect to the developer, and I'm looking forward to seeing the report when it comes back on July 4th. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tom. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Daw. Just briefly, I certainly don't see this motion as any attempt to subvert the minutes of settlement or the process. It really is just, to increase our comfort level that everything is in place and that, as Councillor Humphrey says, we're the ones that feel the calls. Even applications we've approved on Ridge Road and other places, we still receive calls to this day. And so, to me, I think it's a show of good faith on both parts that we just want to be comfortable in what's being proposed and how it's going to be managed, and that I hope that the developers will also be out in 2 weeks to hear the comments at that time.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my only, I'm fine with this now that we've kind of dug several layers, and it seems like we're all in agreement that this is informational only, and it's a guideline. I'm not sure if everyone considers it that way, because when you read it the next day and you don't view the discussion, you won't know. So I think I heard it from Councillor Gartner on tape that it was informational. So through you, Mr. Mayor, I just want to hear from Councillor Tom, the other author, whether this is being viewed as informational from your perspective, please.
You mean Mr. Tom?
Oh, I meant Councillor Marakis.
That's Tom with no H. Councillor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So to answer that question, my intentions have never been to stop or impede the development, as has been mentioned around the table. It's to get a clarification on what staff is going to do to ensure that all the measures that are being put in place are going to be adhered to, and that the least amount of disruption to our residents and to our community are going to happen. That's all I'm looking for in regards to this motion. So.
Councillor Kim.
So is that a yes or a no? You seem to be asking that question a lot. So I just
Councillor Marakis.
I don't know how else to put it. I'm not looking to impede the development. I'm looking to get information from staff. That's on how they're going to make sure that the mitigation measures are going to be in place.
Okay, Councillor Abel. I'm sorry, Councillor Kim.
To you, Mr. Mayor, then, I mean, we all want to ensure that, but that's kind of a very broad response. And so if you're not satisfied with the report, what's the next step in your mind then, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Marakis?
Councillor Marakis?
I didn't know I was going to be interrogated tonight, but I will go along with this. If I don't agree with the report, or I think that there's other measures, I think, as Councillor Tom mentioned in his statement, everyone knows my stance on what on the actual development. But I'm not looking to get into any type of legal battle with anyone. I think that the decision of this council was made, and therefore I would adhere to that moving forward. I just want to make sure, as I stated, that everything is in place for the best for our community. That's all I'm looking for. If I don't agree with it, then I don't agree with it, and I'll state it. But obviously, we need to move forward at that point.
Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Marakis.
Councillor Abel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, Councillor Humphreys kind of brings a different light onto it. If someone calls us, who are we going to call? And we have this report, we're all going to know, as well as the public, it will be public. What has been learned at this stage is a great deal has already taken place and has been on the part of the developer and our staff. I mean, almost everything has been answered and addressed in this. And all we need to do is formalize it so we have it on a piece of paper, sort of now we can put it on a bulletin board and go, okay, this is what we're going to do. And that's great. It is sort of internal. There are some outstanding initiatives on the part of Geranium above and beyond what we see in others. And I think the key thing is that this is a very unique situation. It's recognized by our council, it's recognized by our staff, and it's recognized by the developer. And if we want to bring all these challenges and concerns out into the open, this is a good, healthy report that we will have. And it's not meant to be disruptive. The concerns from the developer said, in their mind, it was like it could. They have a bit of concern. We've addressed that concern. Notwithstanding, we're going ahead with this. So let's go ahead, and the report is coming forward in our general committee advance agenda in 2 weeks. We'll have a pretty good idea in writing what this discussion we had today was about. So I'm along the lines of Councillor Perry. If there's no one else speaking, let's call the question and move on.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. I actually wanted to speak before you did, but that's okay. That's my direction. I don't support it, and the reason I don't support it is because it's been said a number of times, words matter, and there's absolutely no direction in here. Excuse me. There's no direction in here for Mr. Rumuno to come back at any time. There's no date requirement for Mr. Rumuno to come back on a report. There's not even as soon as possible. Now, Mr. Rumuno is very much a man of his word, and I have no doubt that he'll be back when he says he will. But there's no direction. So if for some reason Mr. Rumuno does not come back with a report, direction is we do not sign any agreements. That is the direction. So therefore, we don't sign the agreements, and then we will be in violation of the minutes of settlement. So if someone would like to add a friendly amendment, at the very least, that directs a date for this report to come back by, I will be a whole lot more comfortable. There was a couple of comments that this is the first of its kind development in Aurora. That's absolutely not correct. We moved into Aurora in 1977. In 1979, the farmer's field that I moved on to was developed right up against the stable neighborhood. In the late 80s, the golf course that we're talking about right now was developed in a stable neighborhood. There is a development that's going in right now in North east, Aurora, 109 houses, I think. Now, it happens to be going right up against Newmarket, but that's a stable neighborhood. So they do happen. So it's not maybe the first of its type on a golf course, and I will certainly buy into that. But it's not the first that's going into a stable neighborhood. And I think we need to be aware of that. It's not the first, it's certainly not the last. So if someone would like to put in a friendly amendment that at least adds the date, I will support it. Otherwise, I will not support it. Councillor Humphreys? Oh. I'm sorry, I've got Councillor Maracus and Gardner.
Oh, sorry, apologies.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I have no issue at where it says now, therefore be here resolved that staff provide a report by July 4th council meeting before any agreements are, and then continue. I have no issues with adding that in, as long as Councillor Gardner is okay with that as well.
Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm fine with that.
And that would be a friendly amendment, Mr. Clerk. Okay. I have no other speakers at this time. I'll call the vote then. All in favor? Certainly.
Recorded vote has been asked for the motion 8B, Highland Gate redevelopment. Councillor Maracus, how do you vote? Yes. Councillor Maracus votes yes. Councillor Peary? Yes. Councillor Peary votes yes. Councillor Thompson? Yes. Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Abel?
Yes.
Councillor Abel votes yes. Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys votes yes. Councillor Tom? Yes. Councillor Tom votes yes. Councillor Gardner? Councillor Gardner votes yes. Mayor Daw?
Yes.
Mayor Daw votes yes. Councillor Kim? Yes. Councillor Kim votes yes. The motion passes.
Thank you. Councillor, may I suggest we would normally take our break at 9. May I suggest we take it now and come back at 9? Councillors Tom and Thompson, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Please be back at 10. And the first item is moving forward the consent agenda from GC last week. So we have, thank you, Councillor Tom, Councillor Perry second. Anybody have any issues they want to pull out? Councillor Gardner? Or quick question, excuse me.
We could just, C6 from last week actually pertains to R2. R1, excuse me, R1. So I don't know if we need to refer to it, but I think we should just.
I'm sorry, so C6?
C6.
Okay. So that's the Parks
the
Recreation
dog park.
Minutes, okay?
Yeah.
Councillor Gardner, the clerk is suggesting R13 may be more appropriate as it has the recommendations from last week. Okay?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll pull at R13 from last week. Anyone else? Councillor Maracus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just got a comment about C7.
Okay.
Just wanted to make mention that correspondence from the working group on the OMB reform was actually sent out to the Minister and the Attorney General before their summary came out. And so it took some time to get it on our agenda. So I just wanted to make mention of that. That was sent actually quite a long time ago before any of the changes were proposed and before the first reading of the legislation, of the bill. So just wanted to make mention of that today.
Thank you very much. Any other items? Council, then all in favor of adopting C1, 2, and 3 with the exception of C1 sub R13. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. We'll do R1 and then Councillor Gardner will come back and address R13 along with R2. Okay? R1 in the regular agenda for tonight, which is FS 17-033.
I don't know if I'll need to address it. It's just that it pertains to the same subject.
All right, thank you. All right, would someone care to move R1, please? Councillor Perry, Councillor Tom, any comments or questions on that item? Seeing none, man. All in favor then? Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Gardner. Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I wasn't fast enough on the draw
right.
there. Through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, I'm sorry, I don't know this. Do we have rules posted at the dog park, including that dogs must be tagged, dogs must have a current license? And if we don't, could we do that? I know some dog parks do that, and further to the comments of the resident last week, that might be a way for us to bring in the appropriate money for dogs.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we do. We coordinated that with the Bylaw Services Department.
Councillor?
Sorry for being so wordy then. And the other thing is, do we or could we put on the sign that the park is periodically, that staff periodically visit the park to enforce our rules?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we don't have that on the sign. I mean, we could modify the sign, but it's not. It wouldn't. It would be part of the regular patrol bylaw. What we're more concerned about is informing people of the requirements and that it is a bylaw infraction. But it would be generally our intent that there would be a regular cycle of staff looking at that. But if you would like, we could modify the sign. I don't know that that would make much of a difference, however.
Councillor?
Thank you. It is on some signs, but as long, the whole intent, as long as staff does visit the dog park so that we can show that we do try and enforce the rules. And the last thing is I've had a lot of complaints from the dog owners, and I don't know if it's possible, but apparently the wood chips get caught in some of the dog's paws or all of the dog's paws. And is there any other medium that we could use that might be better and also might stay drier?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Mayor, this was actually a part of a discussion we had at the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, looking at alternative materials, because there were some concern that it wasn't only hard on some dogs' paws, but some dogs were ingesting the material. It seemed consensus at the meeting that the material that we put down, the last type of material we put down, which is the same bark mulch that we put in for our playground, seemed to be the most satisfactory material. So that is the material that we are going to be looking at in the future. So it is not quite as abrasive. However, it is still a wood product.
Councillor?
Thank you. Well, I'd just like to thank the committee and say that, as Mr. Downey well knows, this dog park has been quite an interesting issue through many councils and many advisory committees. Well, it's good to have one, but it certainly has its own issues. I just thought of one more thing. Is it possible, there's a park in Newmarket where they have an area for small dogs? Is it possible to do that?
Mr. Downey?
To you, Mr. Mayor, so that was one of the discussion points with regards to the dog park, and there has been some requests with regards to that. We're investigating that to see what we can't do. I think it's a good idea. It does create an issue with access. So could you need two separate access points at that point? And then, so we are a little bit concerned with regards to that, because there is one main access point. But it is something that we are looking at, and we'd like to be able to consider. We're just not quite sure whether you enter in the large park and then you enter into the smaller part of that with your particular dog. So that would be something we'd have discussions with the group that has signed the Adopt a Park agreement.
Councillor?
We had issues with small dogs being bothered by large dogs.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, they don't normally call and raise some concerns. I know when I was using the dog park and I had a smaller dog, it did seem to be a bit of concern, but that was more the behavior of my dog as opposed to the size. Sometimes they feel they're pretty mighty. So we don't seem to get a whole lot of complaints with regards to that. But it is something that people would like us to at least look at. And so we are going to do that, but we want to be able to do that with discussions with the users.
Councillor? Councillor Abel?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, some of the volunteers that work at the Canine Park had expressed concern about the parking lot and the screen that was used because it muddied up and it got on their car interiors. And something as simple as a pea stone or something along those lines, which is fine but very clean, could be applied. Is that a consideration, or why? What is there a reason why that was not addressed? And also,
Mr. Downey?
Missed the last part of that, and also, okay, yes. So the works that we are proposing to do as part of this capital project are to remove and spread the degraded composted wood chip mulch and replace it with the new screened wood chip mulch that I had previously talked about. Replace the perimeter fence and gate. And install barrier curbing and regrade the parking lot. The concern with the parking lot is that it doesn't drain very well. Not necessarily the material that's on it, but that it does have ponding. So that when you step out of the dog park, you're actually walking into a low area. So we're looking at regrading the parking lot in order to eliminate that and eliminate that muddy material. And that's the work that we had proposed or presented to the Parks and Recreation Committee. So there'll be a new gate, there'll be a new fence, the parking lot will be regraded, and they will be receiving new wood chip material.
Councillor?
thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the answer. It didn't say gate, so that was their wish list. They said their wish list was the parking lot screening to be eliminated. So if I'm understanding correctly, you're going to regrade it, but that screening will still remain. Is there any consideration of cleaning that? Because it's the dust from it, and I understand what it is. That screen, when it gets wet, it's like a mud, and when it dry, it's a dust, and it gets on the paws, and when they hop back in the car, that's what they're talking about. So apart from paving, which I'm pleased to see we're not doing, I think a permeable solution with a cleaner screen, with something like pea stone, which was suggested, and I understand, will bind and be flat and firm and clean. So I'm just wondering if, while we're doing this, if that's maybe an application of throwing that down is of consideration at this time.
Mr. Downey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly we can take a look at that. I haven't got a problem with that. I think the coarse material works really, really well at this time of year. However, they're also looking for us to ensure that we plow this parking lot in the winter. So any loose material or grainy material on top is now going to be removed by the snowplow. And then we would have to go back and put it back again next year. So we are looking for materials that are going to have a little bit more of a year-round use, but I haven't got any issues with looking at a coarser material that will also stand up to the snow plowing.
Councillor? Thank you. Welcome. Councillor Marcus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, if this is approved tonight, when will the work begin, and when would it be completed, of the ones that are listed for the immediate ones within 2017?
Mr. Downey.
Through Mr. Mayor, we've already started a little bit on this. So the gate material, we have been discussing this with the Conservation Authority because they have some requirements with regards to the fencing material. So I believe that we now have approvals for that. I'm not positive, but I think we do. And so there's actually samples of it over at the Joint Operations Center. And so that is fairly quick to come in and order. We propose to put that fence up through a contract on the outside of the existing fence, so there'll be no loss of opportunity in the dog park, and then removing the old fence from the inside. So when that work's going to be scheduled, I haven't got on the agenda at this point. I will be discussing that with staff and finding out when we might be able to move that forward. I can then put an information item on for council, so you have some idea when we're looking at doing some of these works, if you'd like.
Councilor Marcus?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Downey. That would be great to get that report, because that also includes some of the other, like when the mulch would be going in, when the regrading of the parking lot and the curbing would go in. So basically, if you can give us a timeline on all the works that will be going in, that would be great to get as an informational piece, so we could pass along also to the residents. And I see him nodding his head, so I don't need an answer on that. But and also just to go back to something that Councillor Gardner brought up, as far as whether we can set up someone there to make sure that our rules are being enforced. It's my understanding through the committee, we did discuss under new business at Parks and Rec that staff will be setting up a bylaw, will be outside to make sure that anyone entering does have a tag. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Downey, that it's not necessarily a tag just from Aurora. As long as they have a tag from any municipality, they will be allowed to use the park. Is that correct, Mr. Downey? Sorry, through you.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think probably be better if Taysha answered that question, since she's responsible for bylaw.
Ms. Van Loon?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have had conversations with Mr. Downey, and we are looking at increasing patrols at the Canine Commons Park going forward to ensure that the animals entering into the park are licensed. So we are just coordinating that effort currently.
Councilor.
Thank you, and through you to Ms. Van Loon. Ms. Van Loon, can you just kind of explain what will occur? So if someone comes up and they don't have a license, what would happen at that point? If you can just kind of give us a rundown of what exactly would occur.
Ms. Van Loon?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we would request that they do not enter the park. We would provide them with some information on how to obtain a license and give them an opportunity then to obtain the license and return to the park with the license, hopefully maybe even the same day, because they could attend town hall, pay the fee, obtain the license, and go back to the park. But it would be an education opportunity.
Councilor?
Thank you, and I'll just go on and say that I'm thrilled that we're moving forward with this. I was thrilled when we brought it to Parks and Rec, and I just think it's a great opportunity to bring the park up to the standards of all the rest of our parks within our town. So,
all in favor of the item, please. Opposed? That is carried. R2. I'm sorry? On R1? Certainly. Mr. Clerk.
Recorded vote has been requested for item R1, that the 2017 capital project number 73301 Canine Commons Leash-Free Park improvements be approved in the amount of $72,000 to be funded from the Parks and Recreation Repair and Replacement Reserve Fund. Councillor Maracus, how do you vote? Councillor Maracus votes yes. Councillor Humphreys? Yes. Councillor Humphreys votes yes. Councillor Abel?
Yes.
Councillor Abel votes yes. Councillor Tom?
Yep.
Councillor Tom votes yes. Councillor Gardner? Yes. Councillor Gardner votes yes. Councillor Thompson? Yes. Councillor Thompson votes yes. Councillor Kim? Yes. Councillor Kim votes yes. Mayor Daw?
Yes.
Mayor Daw votes yes. And Councillor Perry? Yes. Councillor Perry votes yes. That carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. R2, someone put that on the floor, please. Councillor Tom, thank you. Second. Receiving for information. I'm sorry, Councillor Kim, you had your hand up for that? Thank you. Comments or questions on this? Okay, so all in favor, please. Opposed? That is carried. And then we need R13. Councillor Gardner, will you move that then? Thank you. Second. Councillor Perry, thank you. Any comments or questions on that? All in favor then? Opposed? That is carried. That ends our items. Thank you. We'll move to, if that's okay with you, Councillor Don, we'll move the notices of motion. Councillor Abel. It's not that one, it's the other one. It's a twinning. Linda, it's a twinning motion?
It's cool.
No, we're not moving to recess. We've all got the motion in front of us. Councillor Abel, would you care to move that, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move that.
So a second, please. Councillor Tom, thank you. Councillor Abel, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to, first of all, recognize that the New Beginnings Powwow took place last weekend, June 3rd. I had the pleasure of attending and participating, and I think it's a landmark event in Aurora, and I hope we're going to consider moving towards doing it again. I also went down to see an art exhibit called Making Peace, and it's down on the new Canary Park, just east of the distillery and to the Portlands. It's an outstanding exhibition. It features Nelson Mandela, and it talks about reconciling, and one of the speakers there was the Chief Dr. Robert Joseph, and Mr. Joseph is a ambassador for Reconciliation Canada and a member of the National Assembly of First Nations. And I had briefly approached one of his handlers, for lack of a better word, to approach Mr. Joseph, who was very busy, about the idea of twinning, and gave some details that are outlined here. And he was interested. I never was able to follow up personally with him. But I think he felt it spoke to the reconciliation. And twinning, just so we know, is something about that came about at the end of World War II. And it was the British and the Allies twinning with German or cities in Germany that had been bombed out and were basically destitute. So the idea of working together to rebuild and building a relationship is how twinning started. It then moved into more of a relationship as it went through the years, but that's how it originated. And of course, the Aurora has twinned with Leksand in Sweden in 1976, so that's just over 40 years now. And my point is it's a way of building a relationship, and it's something that lasts a long time. Chief Dr. Robert Joseph was speaking about reconciliation, and it's to bring across Canada to build meaningful relationships among Indigenous people and all Canadians. And our future and well-being of all our children rest with the kind of relationship we build today. And it's basically, we live in a reconciled world, and this is much like what Nelson Mandela and Making Peace is talking about. So it's sort of an international flavor, is a journey, a lifelong journey, generation to generation, that we need each other, and we have to be able to find one another. And so I noticed we often, even today I was at a conference, speak and thank the Indigenous nation that occupied this land in Canada. MPP Ballard did it when we were at the GO station for an announcement. It was today at a conference. And so it's this recognizing and reconciliation. And my idea of the notice of motion is to begin that with municipalities taking lead. And if each municipality were to twin with an Indigenous nation, we could build an understanding. It's not about us giving resources and money and funding or anything along those lines. It's only about learning about each other, and it can build into other things. I had the pleasure of attending Ramadan Iftar dinner, and they featured our Indigenous First Nations, and they talked about some of the residential schools and the life and the difficulties that they endured. And a lot of it was sort of been new to a lot of people in our nation. And when I attended the powwow, I bumped into Deborah Richardson, who's a Deputy Minister of Indian Relations of Ontario. And to those, I also spoke about the idea of twinning and a lifelong journey that would go from generation. And they said it seemed on the surface an excellent idea. So I thought I would bring this idea forward and ask staff to look into what is involved to do something along these lines. And lastly, Glenn Murray, who was raised and born in Aurora, who resides in Newmarket, has journeyed up into the northern regions of Ontario to Indigenous communities. I think he's done it about 4 times. And he's mentioned it to their council leaders there, and he says that they're very receptive to an idea. But there is no formal ask right now, and I think it's appropriate that it be done through the town rather than someone on behalf or someone just checking it out to make a formal idea of twinning. So the idea of my notice of motion is to ask staff to investigate twinning with an Indigenous community in Ontario and report back for our reconsideration, so that we would be able to then begin asking and looking for a like partner.
Thank you, Councillor Abel. Other speakers to Councillor Abel's motion, please. Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm certainly not opposed to twinning with an Indigenous community, but a Canada 150th Municipal Legacy, I mean, I have heard a lot of comments in the media from Indigenous groups that are, I don't know if the word is insulted or, I mean, they've been around for a long time, and 150 certainly doesn't mark any kind of a celebration for them. So twinning is fine. As a 150th Municipal Legacy, I'm really not in favor of that part.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think anybody will have an issue with this, but my concern is around process and the way we go about it. I think if we're reaching out as a municipality to other councils of Aboriginal councils, I think it's important that we involve the groups who were here in Aurora first. So it would make sense to make sure that if we are going to begin twinning with any other First Nations, it would be wise to either get the blessing or to get a greater understanding from the First Nation groups who inhabited our lands. Just a comment, something to take away and to think about as we're moving forward, you know, with this report.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
You know, I support the motion and the idea of, you know, investigating and getting a report back. I think my only real comment is that I've noticed that there's a number of municipalities out there that actually have a criteria and or a policy with respect to twinning and or sister cities. And I think, you know, that would help us as we go through this process. So, you know, I would ask the staff give some consideration to looking at the policies of other municipalities and probably or potentially, you know, coupling that with any report coming back, because I think it's important for us to look at how we make that decision, because especially if, as the second recommendation is there, that we poll communities, we may get more than one that's interested in twinning, and so it would be good to have some sort of framework by which, you know, we can make those decisions on whether or not we want to and who best to twin with. But you know, I know that Councillor Abel said it's not necessarily about, you know, money or benefits or anything like that. It's about learning about each other's culture and along those lines. But, you know, I wouldn't mind also seeing some consideration. We have a fantastic library. Maybe there are some services that we have within town that we can share with them. Not all northern communities have the same access to services that we do, and maybe there are some ways that we can share what we have with them, and I'm fine with that as well. So I look forward for the report coming back.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other speakers, please? Well, I certainly do support the motion. I apologize, Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When the report comes back as well, I forgot to mention it. I would want the report to outline what the goals of this twinning would be from staff's perspective as well. I just think there has to be a reason that we're doing it beyond just learning, but everything that we do should be should have goals identified, should be able to track metrics. You know, maybe not in the most strict fashion, but just so that we all have a clear understanding of what we're getting into and how we can help and how we can learn.
Thank you. Quickly, I do support the motion. I think it's a good idea, and I appreciate the history on twinning. I didn't know about that. Thank you. Councillor Abel, final word to you. Calling the vote then? All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. And the last one was added on tonight, so we need to discuss it. We need waiver of procedural bylaw. Councillor Abel, would you care to move that? For a waiver? Just a waiver. This waiver of procedural bylaw so we can discuss it. Would you care to move waiver? Second, please. This is the waive procedure to discuss the motion. This is not the motion itself. Councillor Humphreys, requires 2/3 vote. All in favor of bringing it forward tonight to discuss? Opposed? That is carried. Councillor Abel?
Mr. Mayor, very simple. There is a staff, a family want to have a mini concert and would like to have an electrical outlet, and I would like to waive the $340 fee that's associated with it. It's very simple.
Thank you. Councillor Humphreys.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to, maybe it's just my, may I? Through you, Mr. Mayor. Just from my memory and recalling, I thought that we permitted out the bandstand or the park. It's the band shell for an hourly rate of $30 an hour. And it's from 2 to 4, so that would be $60. So why is it $340? I thought we did that on.
Can I go to Mr. Downey? Mr. Downey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council had asked us to investigate an hourly rate for the band shell, and so when we brought forward our fees and services bylaw, we had identified an hourly rate for the band shell of $29. However, that doesn't include hydro. So if we have to dispatch a person to turn hydro on and then bring them back to turn it off, there's a setup fee associated with that, and that's also identified in the fees bylaw, and that's $340. However, that would then get the band shell for the entire day if they wished.
Councillor Humphreys.
Sorry, just I appreciate that information. Do we now charge everyone that fee regardless of the hours that we use? Because I know that, I'm pretty sure the farmers market doesn't pay that.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, yes, we do. In fact, the United Church was there, I think, last week, and we charged them.
Councillor Humphreys.
I'm surprised they're not complaining to me. I haven't heard this one. Is this new? I'm sorry. Have we always done it? I missed it because I know that the farmers market were happy because they were able to save quite a bit of money in their budget and were able to reallocate it because they only use it for the hour or two, I thought. But I'll go back and verify.
question for Mr. Downey?
Yeah, I just wondered, is this new? Sorry, Mr. Downey.
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the fee bylaw is not new with regards to the hydro fee. What is new is the hourly rate. I will verify with staff with regards to access for hydro for the band shell. If in fact they aren't being charged, I'll ensure that that fee is imposed as directed by council.
The Sandra Humphreys amendment.
Wow, okay. Thank you. I'm going to have to look into this a bit more. Thank you.
Councillor Thompson, Councillor Perry.
Thank you. Through you to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, in other situations, we've sometimes provided people with a grant to offset the cost of park fees or so forth, and you have at your discretion a community grant program. Was there any consideration given to utilizing that fund as a way to offset the cost of the fees?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. excuse me, through Mr. Mayor, they decided not to apply for a fee, and I don't know that they'd even qualify for the fee. I'd have to take a look at their application if they made one, but at this point they haven't made one, and as I say, I don't know whether they even qualify. They may, but I'd have to see the paperwork.
Councillor Perry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we not have a policy for dealing with these types of issues? Do we not have a policy for dealing with these types of issues? My concern, my fear is if we say yes to this one, for the next 3 or 4 months, there might be a new request for us to waive fees, and are we going to be in a position to decide which 6-year-old child is more important than another 6-year-old child? It would be my hope and my expectation that we have policies in place here so that we're not dealing with one-off requests, so that we understand why we're doing something. So through you to Mr. Downey, is there no policy? Is there no... we've set a policy in place, so I would hate to have one of our staff members be given the authority to disregard the policy that council set. But my concern is if we do this for one individual now, we're going to have to start doing it for everybody coming forward. And I don't know how to justify that. That's my concern. It's not that I think this is a bad cause. I think it's a phenomenal cause. But I think it's something we need to be aware of. Are we all just going to start bringing notice of motion when we hear a comment about a request to waive the fees? And I'm not sure if this it's a tough one, because I would love to, but I think we have to have a policy in place that deals with everybody in the municipality equitably. And I'm not sure this is dealing with everyone equitably. On one hand, it's $340, so it's easy to say, sure, why not? But on the other hand, I think if we're going to make good decisions as we govern, we need to make these decisions consistently across the municipality. So that's my concern.
Thank you, Councillor Perry. It is, and I was approached by the same people on Saturday asking, and I also said I would look into it. Obviously, Councillor Abel looked into it as well. The challenge is from a strictly policy point of view, is how do we even know it's a charity? So, and I'm sorry, that's being a little hard-edged, a little cynical perhaps, but Councillor Perry is right. You do have to have some kind of policy process so that we can treat everybody equitably. The issue is equity and making sure that we treat everybody fairly. So I'm torn on this one. So I really don't know which way to go right now. Councillor Abel, second time. Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Abel.
I don't mind letting...
No, he's got...
So, thank you. I would like to maybe address the question that Councillor Perry brought up, policies and such. We had a policy, it's $325 if you want to use the band shell, and the band shell, of course, comes with electricity. And last term, we said that really impeded the farmers market and others trying to get going and doing things. And so I brought a notice of motion forward and said, could we do it on an hourly rate? We did a report, it came back. We recouped our rate at $28. The farmers market's open in the back. All the fellow has to do is in his rounds, because we do have staff that will attend to other facilities, whether it's the library or the senior center. They're on staff on the weekend on call. He would just make his round and lock up. So it was agreed that we would have an hourly rate. The thing is we never said it was with electricity, and this is what would have been borne forward. So it falls back to where it was, the $325. So in my mind, it's a matter of perhaps discretion or interpretation. Having said that, we do have policies. We have policies in our cultural master plan that there are roles and strategies and actions for us to take place, and it's spelled out very clearly, especially in our cultural precinct, to bring forward community events and music and culture and to foster it, and especially in this area, in our grandstand and our town park. So if you've got a little youth, and promoting youth and music and art, so if you've got a little one that's fiddling and needs a piano, we want to do that. And we want to bring that forward, and we don't want to put anything to do it. We also have a music strategy that says the same thing. Roles of the town, promoting and growing music. And it says creating easier access to town venues. And that's what the spirit of this all was. 3 years later, 4 years later, we find out there's this something binding it, that if you interpret it or you want to, use some discretion, you have to fall back and pay $325. So we've actually gone backwards in the whole thing with our cultural master plan, with our music strategy, and the notice of motion. So I was flabbergasted. I was flabbergasted when I appealed to the director and to our CAO that I had to come to you and ask you to drop $325. This is not a precedent. I've been occupying that band shell with other groups on an hourly rate, I don't know, several times. We just automatically plugged in. Everyone did. It was just it was not brought up until now. So probably the answer is that in light of all this precedent and our cultural master plan, our music strategy that we've adopted and policies are there, we should make easier access and just say, you know what, we forgot to mention power. We need a plug. And it's not difficult. It's not cost prohibitive. So perhaps it's another notice of motion, but for me, I think in this case, I shouldn't have had to bring it forward. I think the authority was within the staff to say, oh yes, of course, that's the way it is. However, I am now asking of council that we waive this fee and probably always include a plug for anyone that's coming in and doing an hourly rate. Why wouldn't we? We don't need $325 to recoup to send that guy, send a staff member that's already on station, probably just sitting waiting for doing something. Wouldn't mind coming out to the park and turning on. So to answer the question, there is policies, there's a master plans we've adopted, there's a notice of motion that we've had, there's precedents, we've been doing it for years. I was told that the only way I could do this was to come to council and ask for a waiver. Because it's this Saturday and they've organized, invited people, I thought it was my role as a councillor to come forward and ask. Very simply. I think we should automatically assume that when people come for an hourly rate that they get a plug. Because that's what music's all about.
I've got notwithstanding the order here, I've got Councillor Maracas and Councillor Kim for the first time.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. Three to Mr. Downey. Mr. Downey, is there electricity provided to the farmers market?
Mr. Downey, please.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't tell you that right off the top of my head, because sometimes they use the band shell and sometimes they don't. So when they permit the band shell, I'll have to find out exactly. But are you talking about within the park? Yes.
Councillor.
Thank you. So my understanding from what I've heard around the table is that this 6-year-old just needs one plug. So I'm just wondering, can they not just tie in with an extension cord to the existing electrical and just run it to the band shell and just play their music and maybe pay the hourly fee instead of having to get someone to come out? Because I agree, this is a tough one because we want to conform to our policies and we don't want all of a sudden a flood. We've mentioned it many times with other things. We don't want a flood of people coming in the next council meeting saying, hey, you know what, can you waive the fee for me now? I want to come there. So it is a difficult one. I'm just wondering why we can't just run an extension cord and plug it in and just run it to the band shell. So just a suggestion maybe can be looked into.
Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with both sides. I agree with Councillor Abel that we do need to have some flexibility in our processes. At the same time, I do agree on the other side with Councillor Perry that we do need some process. But that's the unique thing about policies, is that a lot of policies are made on the run, on the fly, so to speak, because unless you come across an incident, there's no realization that a guideline or policy is needed. So, we just came into one. I recall last fall when a young lady came to council, presented and asked for a donation. And I recall our CAO said he couldn't believe that this exists in our town, that it wasn't a policy that was put in place. I mean, it puts us in an awkward situation when there's good causes and they're making presentations for donation in council. And we met that, we did that, and we put a guideline into our policies, and we corrected that. And we have reserves. We create reserves so that we can mitigate things. And I think as budget's only a couple months away, then maybe we have a reserve for contingencies such as these. So I'm okay with Councillor Abel's motion here. We need to have instances like this to draw awareness that we need to deal with that from a policy perspective. I'm okay with moving forward with waiving the fee here.
Councillor Gartner, first time for you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This but the fee structure came before us. Nobody noticed that there was a $340 fee. Mr. Downey was following the policy with respect to this. So it's, we need to, perhaps we have all of these, Councillor Abel said, the cultural master plan. I mean, maybe we need to sit down and just try and figure this out, how we can use the master plan and further this kind of thing. But I don't think the cultural master plan really was talking about this kind of an initiative. And of course, it's not a charity because the young girl's just raising money for her friend. I would be okay with approving this one time, except Mr. Downey, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey, Councillor Marax's idea was pretty good. If there's electricity there, where is the electricity, and could someone plug in?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I apologize, I'm not familiar enough with the access to the hydro and whether or not it's actually behind a locked box or not. And so I would have to check into that. The box would then have to be unlocked again. This is actually after the farmers market, so staff would now have to attend to this after. We have had discussions with this particular permit holder. email back on May the 1st where we had identified an issue with hydro, and they wanted to know could they put a generator in there and run it off a generator. Absolutely, no problem. So they were looking at that perhaps as a solution, and we had no objection to that. So there are other ways of going about this, I guess, but we were trying our very best to offer some options to this particular resident, because we do not have, as staff, discretion to waive the fee bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Downey. Councilor Gardner.
Again, thank you. Yeah, I mean, staff can't be faulted in this case. It's they don't have the discretion. I really would hate to refuse somebody to do this, and would encourage people to do similar things. But I think we need to, through again, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Downey, it seems to me that the money we put aside every year for people to get grants, it seems to me that it's never fully used.
Mr. Downey.
To you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. It's not fully used, but as I said, looking at this applicant, I don't know that they even qualify, because there are qualification requirements, so I don't know that they even qualify for this. I mean, I'm not denying it's a good cause and it's a sweet thing to do and all of those things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that would qualify for a community grant.
Councillor.
Mr. Downey, so maybe we need to have a special grant section for things like this. So it's something we could look at. If the money we put aside is not fully used, either we could reduce the money or maybe just find some other parameters to use it.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner. We do, and I should be a little more specific, maybe council needs its own policy, but we do have a policy. First of all, we have the fees policy. So Mr. Downey has a very specific set of guidelines that he works to. And if we want to change that, then we can bring the fees bylaw back and deal with that. We don't waive permit fees as such. We fund them out of the council contingency fund. If I have that correct, Mr. Elliott? Is that just not or? So we fund that from the council budget. So that's what we do. So there is a policy and there is a procedure and there is precedence for doing this. And that's how we do it. So the question is if council wants to do it. So my suggestion of policy was perhaps council needs to be a little more specific in how they wish to handle these things. And I would agree that it probably doesn't qualify under the grant program, because we always have a pretty hefty discussion as to who does and who doesn't qualify under the grant program. So if council wants to do that, that's fine, but it comes out of the council contingency fund. Because we've always insisted that Mr. Downey make his numbers, and then we tell him to go, waive this and waive that, and it starts to cut into his budget. So if there's no more speakers, we'll go to Councillor Abel for the third time to wrap up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so we know, the power outlet is behind the band shell. It's under a lock key, and the farmer's market runs extension cords, like lots of them. And the door is open for 6 hours every Saturday. And anyone that's permitted before during the farmer's market just simply goes in, puts a plug in, it goes out a little gate right behind the stage. So to make things real simple, you could just leave an extension cord through the little box out to the band shell, and whenever he gets around to it, he could pull it back in and lock it up. You could do it on Monday. So the fear that someone's going to run a light or something and draw electricity, I don't think is realistic. We do provide, just outside the town hall here, electricity for those that wish to recharge their cars. We don't charge anything for that. I don't think we should be charging anything for a plug when they're permitting. And this was never brought up when the notice of motion came forward. That it was clearly understood, the spirit was the hourly rate was so that you could perform music and put a little microphone there and sing for the people at the farmer's market. It was never once brought up that this rate would not include electricity. It's only being brought up now. So with the spirit of going on, I'm not going to ask Mr. Downey, because he's the author of the music strategy. He's also the author of the cultural precinct. We are trying to make easy access to venues and our cultural precinct, et cetera, for the farmers market, for community, this is not a precedent setting. It's $340 is an absurd amount of money. It doesn't make any sense. It's the same as doing it for a whole day. I don't want to get into it. If it comes from we shouldn't even be talking about this. However, if it's a notice of motion, I'll bring forward that we understand that an hourly rate and it has to change to include electricity. We'll do so, and I'll bring that up for next cycle. But because this family is new to our community, and everything about our cultural master plan says to get our new residents of different backgrounds, get them involved here, we should not be creating a gas generator as an alternate. They're welcome to use when there's a plug right there. So I'll leave it at that, Mr. Mayor. I will bring a notice of motion forward.
Councillor Pierre, I did call for speakers before Councillor Abel wrapped up. Do you have a quick?
I would want to make an amendment that instead of us waiving the fee, it be funded out of the council contingency, because that's how we've always done it.
Well, that would be the process anyway, so thank you.
Well, this, no, this says that we will be waiving fees, so.
Councillor Thompson seconding that. All in favor of the amendment? Opposed? Carried. Back to the main motion as amended. Calling the vote. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Tom would like to move the regional report. Is there a second? Councillor Thompson seconding it. Councillor, questions, please. Councillor Maracas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not really a question. I just want to make a statement. Reading through it, I just wanted to make mention. A couple of us have made comment on the fact of the housing supply, and I just want to make mention that York Regional Council received an update. It says on housing supply and identified that York Region's short and long-term housing supply continues to exceed the requirements set out by the province. So I just wanted to make mention that our housing supply is in good standing. So thank you.
Any other comments on the regional report? All in favor of receipt, please. Opposed? That is carried. We have bylaws. No, new business, I'm sorry. Councillor Maracas, I think I'll start with you. Councillor Gartner. Councillor Gartner.
There is a pride parade in Newmarket on Saturday. It starts at 10:30 at Ontario Street, ends at Timothy, so it's not a long parade. And there are celebrations, the noon hour over at Riverwalk Commons. So I'm hoping to attend. I'm not going to be in the parade, but keeping with respecting diversity, if you can come, please come.
Councillor Abel?
Mr. Mayor, I attended the powwow New Beginnings. I wanted to just say what an outstanding event. There was many people that approached me and thought it was a fantastic idea. Talked about how big these powwows can be. Like the one in Manitoulin Island is 10,000 people. They come from everywhere, but people were coming from everywhere, as well as our residents. There was nothing for dignitaries to be there, but Shelley Ware did approach in a meeting and mention it and invited me to attend to greet them, and I did, and then I was immediately brought in on the grand ceremony, and the marshal was less than encouraging to get me there, and then I had to come out dancing with them, and the reception was a little different when I actually participated. And then they asked me to speak, which was impromptu, and I had nothing, but it was just great to do so. Then I had to do another dance. And when you do a dance, where you go with them, and they taught me how to do the two-step, you go around in a big circle and come back. So you're doing it for 5-10 minutes, and it's not easy, but it was just great. And I hope we can do it again next year, because I get the impression that it'll grow this event. and it was so well received. And our First Nations, there were 4 bands, and they have drums. Each one has they call it a song, and they have banners from where they come from. It really is amazing. So I would really like to thank, it was a great initiative from staff to put that forward. And of course, we have to thank the grant we got from the federal government for that. But it's an outstanding, and I don't think it's done anywhere around York Region or in the immediate GTA. So it might be an opportunity to attract visitors to our town for a great event.
Councillor Abel, I understand from the emails I got that you've already committed to it being a yearly event.
Let me clarify that. So one of the organizer, Rod, came up and he said, Shelley Ware said, they want a commitment for next year, and I have no way I can do it as a staff. I said, well, I'm a politician, I can say anything. So he came up and I said, say that we would welcome an opportunity to look into having him back next year. So he got the microphone and said, the deputy mayor says we're coming back. So you got to be careful what you say.
True enough. Councillor Humphreys.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just 2 things. One is, yes, well, I could not attend. I heard it was a great event, and I did hear it was Councillor Abel's event. So it was good. I mean, and I heard it was really, really spectacular. I hope we should do it again. I support that 100%. The second thing is, obviously the farmers market, 8 to 1. It's promises to be beautiful weather this weekend if you can make it. I would love to have gone to the Pride Parade. It's our grandson's 6th birthday, so I don't think we can swing it. Otherwise, I absolutely would love it. It sounds like it's going to be a great event, and I think that's it for me. Thanks.
Councillor Tom.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only comment would be that
this is new business.
This is new business.
Okay.
So this happens
to
every
PSAs.
week. Is it possible, like, it used to be before everything, and now it's all at the end? I mean, whatever. It used to be fine at the beginning of the meeting. Whatever. I mean, that might need an amendment to our procedural bylaw, so I don't want to get into that. So yeah. Anyhow, so this is new business. The only question I have is, can I get an update on when the monument, the addition to the Peace Monument, is going to be installed?
The LIV?
Yep.
Mr. Downey, do you have anything current? I don't. I've been asking.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, so I believe the paperwork is done. Yeah. They're checking me out right now, I understand, calling all my references. So, because there has to be a designated official for the identified within the corporation, and they asked me to be that designated official. So until that clearance is done, we will not be, they won't process when they can bring it. So I'm waiting for that clearance, and then we'll be able to then determine when it might arrive.
Councillor?
Do you think it'll be in place for Remembrance Day?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I suspect so. I mean, that would be my thought. But as I say, this has been quite the process, and they will not move forward until they've got all the clearance done. But I know that one of my references had called me and says, "Oh, the RCMP called me and asked me questions about you." So it's quite the police check.
Councillor Kim. I'm sorry. Are you done? Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Downey. I know it's only been 3-4 weeks, but everything's still on course with Maverick Park.
Mr. Downey.
To you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, excuse me, I got an update from staff yesterday on it, and we ran into some soil issues, and however, we got more topsoil there than we actually need. So we are now negotiating some arrangements with the contractor, but it's on schedule, and it will, so far, it's within budget. So we have no budget considerations.
Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's only been about 7 or 8 months, but any updates on the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Park?
Mr. Downey.
We have placed the contractor or given them a deadline in which to complete the park. We have been working with the contractor and our legal department with regards to their efforts on the park, because we are behind schedule and we are concerned about that. So we have set a deadline. We are working towards ensuring that that deadline is met, and if not, then we will then may be coming back to council with some requests.
Councillor Perry.
The only thing I would add is that they're a very vocal crew as well, and perhaps if they could temper their language and their volume, I think it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
PSAs, Councillor Perry? No. Well, yeah, kind of. Councillor Kim? Councillor Tom? Councillor Humphries? Councillor Abel? PSA? No. Councillor Thompson? Councillor Gardner?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, I started the wrong ball rolling.
It's okay.
But I do actually have a new business question. So I'm I'm not sure to who this would be addressed or to whom. We received an email about at Highland Green, I think it's the pump house. And it's really in disrepair, and I don't believe the town is using it anymore. And so I'm not sure if anybody from staff applied to the resident. Mr. Muno, you're Mr. CAO tonight. But could you find out, please, if anybody...
Yeah, I responded.
I know, but is staff dealing with it? I mean...
I spoke to Mr. Downey tonight, and I haven't yet had an opportunity to speak to Mr. Ramuno.
Okay. Thank you very much. Could you let us know what happens with it?
Obviously. PSA?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, this is a PSA. I just, this weekend, the past weekend also was Paws in the Park, and it was a successful event where everyone got to get together with their dogs, and there were some free treats. And so I just wanted to thank Ms. Van Leeuwen and her team in the bylaw department for putting on a great event for the residents of the town. And second, I know I mentioned this last week, but this is council, and we might have different viewers that decided to stay on late. So once again, I would just like to make mention and congratulate Councillor Perry on his re-election to the FCM Board of Directors.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick ones, given the hour. Councillor Gardner mentioned the Pride Parade up in Aurelia. There's also one in Newmarket on this Saturday, and we actually raised the flag here this morning outside Town Hall with YRP and members of York Pride Fest. And more information, yorkpridefest.com. Our splash pads are now open. They were certainly well used on Saturday. Going along, great guns. We're looking for focus group for participants to improve communications within the community. Wednesday, June the 21st, from 7 to 9 at the Aurora Family Leisure Complex, Program Room A. Parks and Rec Month in June. Keep that in your mind as you go forward. And the bike event was mentioned. That's 24th, right? The bike event, the 24th. And we're seeking youth members. Apparently, I do not qualify between the ages of 12 and 17 to serve on the Youth Engagement Committee. So aurora.ca/youth. So thank you very much, staff. Thank you very much, council. We'll move to bylaws. We have two bylaws. Councillor Gardner, you want to move the bylaws?
No. I don't remember getting an email about raising the flag. Because I would have loved to have gone.
Half the time, these are not events that we organize. So.
Was this at Town Hall, though?
Well, yeah. So I'm not sure who organizes that part. I'll check into it and let you know.
I think we did get something.
Yeah, so was I. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I saw something.
I'll look into that and advise council. Bylaws. Someone move the two bylaws, please. Councillor Tom. Councillor Kim, comments or questions on the bylaws? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Confirming bylaw? Councillor Abel, Councillor Thompson? All in favor? Motion to adjourn. Councillor Tom, Councillor Humphries, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.